All right, so get this. We're diving deep into leadership today. This quote really got me thinking. A leader knows the way, learns on the way, and shows the way. But then, bam, the article hits us with the idea of a throwdown specialist for leaders. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's pretty intriguing, right? Makes you think. Okay, so athletes, right? They have coaches to help them refine their technique, like really specific
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, total. Like a pitcher perfecting their curveball, right?
Yay!
Or a musician nailing a solo. Someone pushing them to be the absolute best at that one thing they need.
Exactly. And you know what? Leaders, they're not just born, they're made. They need that constant feedback to grow. So this throwdown specialist for a leader, it's like having someone, or actually even a bunch of someone's, giving that super focused, targeted feedback
Yeah.
helps them level up, you know?
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. But who are these leadership throwdown specialists then? Like, do I need to put out a job ad, seeking guru with a clipboard?
Haha. No, it's not like that. It's not about hiring some big shot expert. A leader's throwdown specialists, they're actually already all around them, like their team, colleagues, even people you might not think of right away.
Wait, you mean like the people kind of in the trenches? The ones who are doing the day-to-day work?
Yeah.
The article used this, well, kind of harsh term, the graveyard, but I think I get what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Those folks, they see how a leader's decisions actually play out, like for real. They experience the impact firsthand.
Right, totally.
Think about it. If you're leading a team, who better to tell you if your communication style is actually working? Or if that new process you put in place is really making things more efficient? It's the people who are living it, you know?
I see what you mean. It's like you might think you're being super clear and supportive, but if the graveyard, if they're telling you something different, then whoa, you've got to listen up.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Those people, those folks in the graveyard, they're the ones who probably made you a leader in the first place, you know? They're the ones who believed in you, who followed your vision. So their feedback, that's like pure gold.
Hmm. I hadn't thought about it that way. It really kind of shifts your perspective, doesn't it?
It does, right. It reminds you that leadership, it's not this solo act, you know? It's not about barking orders from some ivory tower. It's about being down in the trenches with your team, really listening to what they're saying, learning from what they're experiencing. And it takes a certain kind of leader to do that well.
Okay, wait. I think I know where you're going with this. You're going to say it takes humility, which, let's be real, it's not exactly the first word that pops into your head when you think leader. We usually think like confidence, charisma, big personality stuff.
It's true. Confidence, yeah, it's important. But I think it can be a trap if you don't have a good dose of humility, too.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more. What do you mean?
Well, if a leader's ego is calling the shots, they basically become blind to their own flaws. They block out valuable feedback, especially from, you guessed it, the graveyard. Think they've got all the answers, and, well, that can be a recipe for disaster.
So you're saying that humility, it's what allows a leader to actually hear that feedback, to process it without getting all defensive, and then, like, this is the big one, actually act on it.
You nailed it. There's this great quote by Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo. She said, "You have to be willing to accept criticism, to grow, and to learn from it." That's what humble leadership is all about. And honestly, it's the only way to become the leader you're truly meant to be.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But what about those leaders who, don't embrace humility? What happens to them?
Well, let's just say there are a lot of cautionary tales out there. Leaders who let their ego take over, they risk becoming isolated, out of touch, and ultimately, they just don't get the results they're looking for. It leads to stagnation, not success.
Okay, so it sounds like we've established that humility is crucial. But how do you actually build that as a leader? Like, is it something you're born with? Can you even learn to be more humble?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, sure, some people might just naturally be more humble, but I really believe it's a skill you can develop. You know, you can work on it, get better at it over time.
So, like, what are some things leaders can do? Where do they even begin?
One of the biggest things is being really, truly curious about other people's perspectives. Actively seek out those different viewpoints, even especially the ones that challenge your own assumptions.
So it's about getting outside of your own little bubble, right?
Yeah.
Being open to the fact that you might not have all the answers.
Exactly. And it's not just about listening to understand, it's about listening to learn, ask questions, really try to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
What about those situations where you get feedback that you just, flat out disagree with? Because not all feedback is created equal, right?
You're absolutely right. Not all feedback is good feedback. But even when you disagree with someone, it's important to approach that conversation with respect and really a genuine desire to understand where they're coming from.
So instead of just shutting them down, take a minute to consider their perspective.
Mm.
Maybe they have a different experience or they know something that you don't.
Exactly. And here's another important point. Don't be afraid to ask for help. A humble leader, they recognize that they don't need to have all the answers. They're comfortable reaching out to others for support, guidance, even mentorship.
Yeah, it's like admitting that you're still a work in progress, which for some leaders, that can be a tough pill to swallow. But honestly, it's that vulnerability that makes you more relatable, more trustworthy to your team.
Totally. I mean, who wants to work for a know-it-all? Nobody, right? People want to feel heard, valued, like what they do matters. And that's exactly the environment that a humble leader creates.
This has been really eye-opening. I feel like we've really unpacked this whole throwdown specialist
Yeah.
idea and how it connects to what really makes a great leader.
Hmm.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious, what's like one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's trying to be a more humble leader?
That's a great question. I'd say start by asking yourself this. Who are the people in my graveyard? Who are the people who see me leading every day? The ones who might have insights I'm missing? Once you figure that out, make a real effort to connect with them. Ask for their feedback, listen openly, and then be willing to act on what you hear. It's those small steps, done consistently, that will help you become a more humble and effective leader. Imagine this. You've got this leader, they build a successful career, they're confident, charismatic, all those things. It's easy to start thinking, I got this all figured out, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You're at the top. People look to you for answers. It's almost like you're expected to be like perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when, humility becomes even more important because if you don't have it, you miss your own blind spots. You stop looking for those different perspectives, especially from people who might, disagree with you.
And that's where our friends in the graveyard come back in, don't they? They can
Oh.
give you that reality check. The one you might need, but not really want to hear.
Exactly. They're the ones who see the actual consequences of your decisions, down in the trenches. They might know why a strategy isn't working or why everyone's feeling down. But if you're not approachable, if they don't feel safe being honest with you, well, that valuable information just disappears.
So how do you actually get that humility? Is it like, are you born with it? Or can you actually learn to be more humble?
That's the million-dollar question. Some people, maybe they're naturally more humble, but honestly, I think it's something you can learn, like a skill, you can get better at it over time.
Okay, so what can leaders actually do? Where do they even start?
I'd say one of the most important things is being truly curious
Yeah.
about other people's opinions. Like, go out and seek those different viewpoints, even the ones that make you question your own ideas.
So step outside your bubble a bit.
Yeah,
Be open to, maybe not always being right.
exactly. And it's not just listening to be polite. It's about listening to actually learn,
Uh-huh.
ask questions, really try to put yourself in their shoes.
Okay, but what about when you get feedback and you just like completely disagree? I mean, not every piece of feedback is good, right?
Well, absolutely. Not all feedback is good feedback. But even if you disagree, you got to approach the conversation with respect,
Mhm.
and really try to get where they're coming from.
Don't just dismiss it right away. Take a second to think about their perspective. Maybe they have a different experience or they know something you don't.
Exactly. And here's another important thing. Don't be afraid to ask for help. A humble leader, they know they don't need to have all the answers. They're okay with asking others for support, for guidance, even a mentor.
Yeah, it's kind of like admitting you're still a work in progress, which can be tough for some leaders.
Yeah.
But it's that vulnerability that makes you more real, more trustworthy.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody wants to work for someone who thinks they know everything. People want to feel heard, valued, like their work means something. And that's the kind of environment a humble leader makes.
This has been great. I feel like we've really, dug into this whole throwdown specialist concept and how it connects to being a truly effective leader. But before we wrap up, I'm curious, what's like one piece of advice you would give to someone who wants to be a more humble leader?
That's a good question. I think I'd say start by asking yourself, who are those people in my graveyard? The ones who see how I lead every day, who might have ideas I'm missing. And once you figure that out, really make an effort to talk to them. Ask for their feedback, really listen, and then be ready to actually do something with what they tell you. It's those little things done over and over that will help you be a more humble and a more effective leader.
It's kind of funny, we talk about leadership with these big fancy words like vision and strategy and charisma. But today, It feels like we've uncovered something way more, well, basic,
Right.
like humility, right? Being able to listen, learn, and admit you don't have all the answers.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not about like putting yourself down or forgetting what you've done well. It's about realizing leadership. It never stops. It's a journey.
Mm.
You're always growing, changing. And for that, you need those throwdown specialists, the people who'll give you that honest feedback, even when it's tough to hear.
And the crazy part is, those throwdown specialists,
Yeah.
they're not always the ones with the fancy titles and corner offices. They're the people right there with you, day in and day out. The ones
Yeah.
who actually see what happens because of the decisions you make. They're the ones who can say, hey, this is working, or maybe not so much.
Exactly. They can help you get better, just like a coach helps an athlete. And an athlete's got to be open to coaching. A leader, they got to be open to feedback, even the critical kind.
So anyone listening who's thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but like, how do I actually do this? What's one thing they can do, like today, to try this throwdown specialist thing out?
Good question. I just say find someone on your team, someone whose opinion you haven't really thought about before, maybe someone you don't talk to that much, or someone who sees things differently than you. Ask them for some honest feedback about something specific. Could be a decision you made recently, a project you're working on, even just your leadership style in general.
And the key here is to really listen. Don't interrupt. Don't get defensive. Just try to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And then, oh, this is important. Thank them for being honest. Let them know you'll think about what they said.
Simple things like that, they make a big difference. It shows you're approachable, you value their opinion, and you actually want to be a better leader.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave everyone with this thought. Next time you're up against a leadership challenge, don't just go to the usual people for advice. Think about those throwdown specialists all around you, the people who are invested in your success. They might have some amazing insights that you won't find anywhere else.
They're like a secret weapon ready to help you take your leadership to the next level. You just got to listen.
And hey, we want to hear from you what really stuck with you today. Hit us up on social media and keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep diving deep.